Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Joseph Rogers. I am with the Virginia Defenders for Freedom, Justice, and Equality, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the Virginia Prison Justice Network to announce the details of our 5th annual Virginia Prison Justice Rally and Car Caravan taking place this Saturday on January 22nd. I am joined by other members of the network who will be speaking both today on the issues that are close and dear to them, as well as who will be speaking, those of us who will be speaking in present at the rally itself. So just to give a little bit of background about the network, of course, the network itself was formed in the wake of the first Virginia Prison Justice Rally in January of 2018, and has continued to work with and on behalf of the incarcerated persons across the state since that time. And in those 5 years, it has done some great work connecting communities together with organizations and networks already doing that important work, building on what has come before us and in order to connect and make stronger our collective activism. Of its 5-member steering committee, more than half are currently incarcerated persons, and it is through them that this network gains its direction. And so we always are working on behalf and with the direction of incarcerated persons first and foremost. And in this 5th year of our Prison Justice Rally, the network continues to spotlight the issues surrounding prisoners and the prison system, this time by focusing on 4 key demands: bringing back parole, ending solitary confinement, outside oversight of Virginia's prisons and jails, and second-look resentencing getting passed by the General Assembly. Today, we have our 4 speakers who will be speaking on each of their points. And to start, we'll go with bringing back parole and having our first speaker begin. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Krista Ellison, Executive Director of Freedom Over Everything. Krista.
Hello, how are you doing? Yes, I'm Krista Ellison, Executive Director of Freedom Over Everything. It's a nonprofit that was established in 2018 by incarcerated men. These men are currently at Buckingham Correctionals. You have Kevin Dickerson, Nadir Salim, and Oliver Adams. These men have put together programs to rehabilitate themselves, to better prepare them for parole, workshops. They have over 30 men who have already graduated out of their workshop and are looking to continue that process of getting another 30 and another 30 to just continue to educate themselves and to fight to reinstate parole.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that greatly. Our next speaker is Natasha White for speaking on the end of solitary confinement. Natasha White is the coordinator and manager of the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement. Natasha.
Good afternoon. I would first like to thank the Virginia Prison Justice Network for inviting me to share this space with you and speak on behalf of the coalition. As he said, my name is Natasha White. I am the newly appointed Director of Community Engagement at Interfaith Action for Human Rights and the coordinator for the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement. I am also a formerly incarcerated survivor of solitary confinement. For 15 years of my life, I was incarcerated. Throughout my incarceration, I saw firsthand the abuse of the carceral system. When I was put in solitary confinement, where I would remain for 4 years for no other reason than who I was married to. Even after being released 5 years ago, I still struggle daily with extreme frustration over minor things and long bouts of loneliness and depression. I spend the majority of my free time either running because I feel like I'm trapped in my own house or self-isolating because the outside world is too much. Solitary confinement is detrimental to the psyche of the human being, making it ineffective and unproductive. Solitary confinement is a form of torture as this practice entails caging an individual in a minuscule space while depriving them of basic human needs. Studies have shown that isolation could be mentally and physically taxing since people are restricted from human interaction and mental stimuli. For example, Southern Poverty Law Center in 2019 reported that people in solitary confinement may suffer from restlessness, hallucinations, and incoherence of thought and speech. There are 11 suicides per 100,000 incarcerated individuals in Virginia prisons between the years of 2001 and 2019. Its inhumaneness is so transparent that even the Virginia Department of Corrections settled 2 lawsuits due to the negative repercussions of placing a person in solitary. Nicholas Reyes was trapped in solitary for 12 years because he was unable to communicate in English in order to complete the step-down program. In another lawsuit, an individual who struggled with mental illness already was left in confinement for 600 days. The fact is, solitary confinement does not address the underlying issues of an incarcerated individual. If anything, it exacerbates them. Prison is supposed to be rehabilitating, but locking someone in a box or cage does not help that process and denies people the programming and therapy necessary for rehabilitation. This is not just a prison issue, it is a people issue. Human beings should be treated as human beings no matter where they are. The Vera Institute reported that state and local governments are passing laws to restrict or end solitary confinement in jails and prisons. But corrections officials are instituting policies that can circumvent these laws, allowing this barbaric practice to operate under other names. Restorative housing will be Virginia Department of Corrections' 9th solitary confinement name change. When an issue like this has affected the very core of you, like myself, you will do all that you can to make sure there are no more human beings subjected to the long-term effects of this practice. Once you've experienced the trauma of solitary confinement and witnessed the victory of ending said torture, it will be impossible for you not to push Virginia to follow suit. On behalf of Interfaith Action for Human Rights and the Coalition on Solitary Confinement, I beg for your support of SB 108. Call and email your legislators, ask them to vote to end the torture of incarcerated individuals. This is human life we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. To speak on our next point, outside oversight over Virginia's prisons and jails, we have Kimberly Jenkins Snodgrass, Senior Advisor to Criminal Justice, or Interfaith Action for Human Rights. Kimberly. Kimberly, you are still muted. It would not be a Zoom meeting if we did not have.
If somebody didn't do it, right? All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the network for having me. It's my pleasure to be here with my sisters to communicate legislation that should be enacted. As it was mentioned, I am the Senior Advisor of Criminal Justice at Interfaith Action for Human Rights, which represents people of faith who educate and advocate in Maryland, DC, and Virginia for correction systems that avoid unnecessarily punitive practice such as solitary confinement, and that instead focus on rehabilitation and successful entry. We at IAHR wholeheartedly support HB 655, the Correction Ombudsman Bill, introduced by Delegate Patrick Hope and supported by our partners, to name a few: FAM, ACLU Virginia, the Humanization Project. The creation of the Office of the DOC Independent Ombudsman would assist with creating much needed balance in prison, both at the state and regional jail levels. Passage of HB 655 is vital because of both the nature of prison and the inadequacy of the means of dealing with conflict, grievances, and interpersonal problems inherent in incarceration. HB 655 will create the independent office of Department of Correction Ombudsman. This office will serve as the key accountability center for taxpayers, the incarcerated, impacted families. The long history of abusive practice in Virginia State Prison is well documented, but without governmental oversight, accountability to the public, it is a practice that continues to live in the shadows. The creation of this department will ensure transparency in the use of taxpayer funds, living and working conditions in detention facilities, and provide a vehicle to investigate claims of mismanagement and abuse. Richard Foreman, in his article, The Prison Ombudsman, states, effective balance between the inmate and the institution is the objective way of any effort to advance the human rights of prisoners. I say incarcerated individuals. The results will be more stable, more civilized, and a less debilitating prison system. Fulmer goes on to say, this will not be because of human rights alone, as it is too often assumed, but will result from the creation and recognition of a healthier tension balance between the integrity and value inherent in both the individual and the institution. The key balance is a firm foundation for balancing agent. Too often, prison jails violate incarcerated people from a human rights perspective. HB 655 will provide independent oversight. We need prisons and jails that support transparency, accountability when human rights violations occur. Case in point, my son is incarcerated and has served at Wallens Ridge and Red Onion, maximum security prisons. I have two friends, and I won't name them. However, both of their sons have been returned in body bags with a tag on their toe. These incidents need investigation. One occurred January 21, and one has occurred January 2022. So it is very important that when our loved ones are sent home with a tag on their toe, that we get answers quickly and not be challenged with the press saying that this was an accident. These are, in most cases, my people. As you guys say, people of color. These are my sisters and brothers who are losing their children. And we need oversight, we need independent oversight, and we need to support HB 655. HB 655, the bill enumerates the duties and the powers of the office, which include providing information as appropriate to inmates, family members, representatives of inmates, Department of Correction employees and contractors, and others regarding the rights of inmates. Monitoring conditions of confinement, assessing compliance with applicable federal, state, and local rules, regulations, and policies and best practices as related to the health, safety, and welfare and rehabilitation of inmates. HB 655 also provides technical assistance to support incarcerated individual participation in self-advocacy, providing technical assistance to local governments in the creation of correctional facility oversight bodies as requested, establishing a statewide uniform reporting system to collect and analyze data related to complaints received by the department and data related to deaths, suicide attempts in custody, physical and sexual assaults in custody, the number of incarcerated individuals placed in solitary confinement, the number of facility lockdowns lasting longer than 24 hours, the number of staff vacancies at each facility, the inmate to staff ratio at each facility, staff tenure and turnover, and the number of in-person visits to incarcerated individuals that were made and denied at each facility, establishing procedures to gather stakeholders' input into the office activities and priorities, which must include at a minimum a annual 30-day period of receipt of an office. The bill also established, and this is very important, a correctional oversight committee, which is responsible for selecting the Department of Correction ombudsman. The bill additionally outlines the office authority to conduct inspections of each department, a board of local and regional jail facilities, and requires the submission of an annual report to the governor, the attorney general, the state committee on the judiciary, the House of Public Safety, and the director of the department. Accountability. This is what this bill is about. In closing, HB 655 Correction Ombudsman Office is the perfect conduit to serve as the balancing agent between incarcerated individual family members, representatives of men and women behind the walls, the Department of Correction, employees, contractors, and others regarding the rights of incarcerated individuals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your words on that too. We look forward to hearing more at the rally this weekend. And for our last speaker today, we're talking about passing second look resentencing. Santea Nance, co-founder of Sisters in Prison Reform, speaking to you now.
Hi, I'm Santea Nance, the co-founder of Sisters in Prison Reform. Thank y'all for having me today. Really just wanted to touch on second look resentencing and what that is. So it's one of those things that's a little new from a national standpoint. There have been a lot of different states who have either considered this kind of legislation or passed this kind of concept. And we really wanted to try to find a way to bring that to Virginia in a meaningful way, especially knowing the political climate that we have right now. But really just wanted to address the fact that it's going to be another mechanism for addressing extreme sentences. So we know that Virginia is not really made right now to let anyone out of prison or to have their sentence reconsidered, or there's no parole and all these different things that are not allowing for people to get out unless you have the governor raise his hand and sign for you to come out. There's really no other way for that. So we wanted to make sure that we were creating not only, you know, bringing back things that were abolished, but also trying to bring other mechanisms for people to get out. But what we do have is a couple of different bills. One that's on the House side, which is HB 906, patroned by Delegate Carrie Corner. And then on the Senate side, we have SB 378, which is proposed and patroned by Senator Chap Peterson. And this policy is super important for a few reasons, especially in Virginia, because again, like I mentioned earlier, they do not have any mechanism for resentencing after conviction. And then parole was abolished in 1995. And then they also took away earning for good time. So we just need to have as many ways as possible, you know, for people to have the opportunity to come out after serving such long sentences. It also addresses who somebody is right now at the time of their petition and not really looking exactly at what they did when they were younger or who they were when they were younger or at the time of the conviction. And it's also another avenue for those who've been locked up for 10 to 15 plus years and have rehabilitated themselves and give them a chance to have their sentence reduced. It provides local community consideration as it's going to go back to the courts and it wouldn't be for a board. And then it also is going to provide transparency and you'll get a reason as to why you were denied or you know, exactly what you need to do to work on yourself. But the Sisters in Prison Reform has been working with a lot of different organizations in Virginia, No Left Turns, Justice Forward Virginia, ACLU, and Humanization Project, just to name a few, to put this legislation together. And we wanted to make sure that we're emphasizing that this opportunity is something that would be earned. And it directly targets those who have done the work to rehabilitate themselves after a long period of time, and just brings a lot of hope among the incarcerated population and gives people something, you know, to work on and work hard during the time that they're incarcerated to get that chance of reconsideration. Because again, if you get slapped with 20 years and you hear that you can't get parole and you hear that you can't earn time, you're like, well, I'm stuck here for 20 years. Like there's no reason to, you know, do everything I need to do to rehabilitate myself. But we definitely wanted to point out that this is something that will allow people to have hope. And my loved one, my fiance is actually incarcerated. He's been behind bars for nearly 14 years. And he and other guys in his pod are super excited about this and just having, you know, the opportunity to have a policy that would give them some hope. So just quickly to give you guys a synopsis of what it is that we've put forth in Virginia is you would get a chance to apply for a petition to the court after serving 10 years if you were under 25 at the time of the offense, or after serving 15 years over 25 at the time of the offense. Again, because we know that there's a ton of studies that show that people age out of crime and definitely want to consider that in thinking about resentencing. And then you also have to be free of any major infractions from the past 5 years in that same period. So really trying to take into account exactly who somebody has been in the past 5 years and the work that they've put in during that time. And then in the consideration and hearing process, the court will be able to take into account any proof that that petitioner is ready to come back out into society, you know, and come home. And that's included, but not limited to some things I already mentioned, which is their age, their age now, the age they were at the time of the conviction, the programs they've taken, if they've mentored people, taken classes, making sure that they followed their case plan. And then it also takes into account if you had any physical, mental, or any kind of abuse at the time of conviction. If you have employment when you're coming home, just all of the things that basically show that somebody is rehabilitated and is ready to come back out into society. So we definitely want to make sure we have as many opportunities out there as possible to end mass incarceration in Virginia, because as we know, there are way too many people locked up behind bars in our state, and we need to find as many ways as possible to give them an opportunity to come home, and really just starting with those who have done that work and they've shown that they're ready, and they've shown that they have rehabilitated themselves and will be out in society. And it's something that everybody who's a human can agree on, which is why we've been really pushing the General Assembly to, see people as humans, and see people as citizens of our state. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much for speaking on that point too. And I'm again looking very much forward to hearing more about it and how we can help, especially coming up at this rally on Saturday. And Saturday's events will consist of two parts. First, there will be a car caravan, which departs from the Devil's Half Acre, Lumpkin's jail site, if you need to Google it, in Shockoe Bottom in Richmond. That will depart from there at 11:45, but we will start gathering in that space around 11 o'clock. So we'll have a 45-minute window in which we'll gather everyone together, and then we will depart from Lumpkin's jail site to Monroe Park. And the car caravan is an extension of what we have done in the past. Last year, with COVID cases on the rise and no vaccine in sight, we definitely chose to select a more safe alternative to gathering in those spaces. And so the car caravan will continue on in that form, and it will go past the governor's mansion. It will go past the General Assembly buildings so that our presence will be felt. And the car caravan gets us to Monroe Park, at which point in time at 11 p.m. there will be, or 11, my apologies, at 1 p.m. At 1 p.m. at Monroe Park is when the rally will start, along with speakers, and we'll talk to a range of topics, including and especially highlighting those 4 demands that we mentioned here and spoke to today. So that rally will go from 1 p.m. until 2:30 p.m. Please, if you can attend, we want to make sure that you are there as well. And I want to also give a note. We are not unaware of the weather forecast. We are very much keeping an eye on that too. Without a doubt, the rally will take place. Come rain, sleet, or blowing hail, the rally will take place. We have not backed down in 5 years. We won't back down this year. If we need to, we will not have the car caravan. If the weather is bad enough, we will forego the car caravan to make sure that emergency vehicles can continue to operate the way that they need to on the streets. We will not block emergency vehicles from accessing the roads with a car caravan if that is what is necessary on that day. However, we will absolutely still have the rally. I will be there. I will be bundled up. We encourage you to keep your hands warm, keep your feet and toes warm, but come out and join us. We will have coffee. We will have restrooms. We will make sure that all of the amenities are available for everyone to be comfortable, as comfortable as possible at the rally. So please join us on Saturday, January 22nd. Either at the car rally or the car caravan at 11 o'clock at the Devil's Half Acre Lumpkin's jail site, or at the rally itself at 1 p.m. at Monroe Park. We look forward to seeing you all, because again, this is Virginia's largest gathering supporting the human rights, Santia named, the human rights of incarcerated persons. And the General Assembly is going to meet on vote on these bills, and we will continue to put our voices and the voices of our family members, the voices of our community members, and the voices of the people who cannot be present to voice for themselves it is important that our voices amplify theirs. So we want to make sure that you are all here with us on Saturday, that you are able to join us, and that we continue this work. No matter who is in the governor's mansion, we will continue this work. No matter who is leading the General Assembly, who has that gavel, we will continue this work. It is important as now as it was 2 years ago, as it was 2 years before that. We will continue to work in these conditions to make sure that these human rights are acknowledged. And we look forward to you joining us. We look forward to you seeing you all on Saturday. So peace and love, and we'll see you Saturday.